got just a little tiny sliver of an event here in Jesus' life. I find that the best way to understand these tiny little slivers of events that we hear in the Gospels read at Mass is to go into the Gospel and see what comes before and see what comes afterwards. That's why I think it is really important that we prepare to hear, not just prepare to preach, but prepare to hear the Gospel by reading these sections within their broader context. What was happening before this? Well, Jesus entered Jerusalem. This was happening in the last week of his life. And he was criticizing the wealthy people, particularly the scribes and the Pharisees, because they were defrauding, cheating the widows. And then he looks up from that criticism and he sees what's happening here in the temple, that people are lined up to give their contributions to the temple. And this poor widow comes in, puts in her 2 copper coins, followed by all of these others who are tithing from their great wealth or whatever, putting in huge sums. And Jesus makes the observation, look at that woman. She has put in more than all the others. How can that be? She's put in everything that she has to live on. Then, what happens? People, and we'll hear this for the rest of the week, people come to him and say, look at the splendors of this temple. Look at all the gold, all the decorations. Nothing so splendid and wonderful has ever been seen. And he says, I tell you, all of this is going to topple soon. In fact, by the time that Luke wrote those words down, that had already happened. So Luke is writing, and his hearers are hearing this in the context of what we're going to hear the rest of the week has already happened. However, the one who is triumphs over all of these things is the one who is held the least, the one who gives all that they have in order to help others, in order to bring about the greater glory and honor of God, not of the donors who like to have things named after them, but anonymously giving all that they have. There's an interesting twist to this story of the widow because it is a kind of a transition point leading into Jesus talking about what's really important in the last days, in the days when everything is going to be disrupted and destruction will seem to be around the corner. And that is this. I myself, I don't know about you, but I myself have always pictured this image of the poor widow putting in her 2 cents into the temple treasury as being a little old lady. And James Tissot, a great artist of a little more than 100 years ago, he painted this image as a young woman with a child in her arms. And she's walking away from that donation box while others are stuffing their contributions in. She's walking away with sort of a hopeful expression on her face. And the little child is playing with something in its hands as she's carrying it. And I think that is a sign of hope for the future. That our future in the kingdom of God, in what is important for God, and therefore important for us, depends on how generous we are in sharing whatever it is, even if it's not much, but whatever we have with the Lord. She had a child to be responsible for, and yet she trusted that the Lord was going to take care of them and was able then to be freed to give generously. I think that's something that might speak to our hearts too, as we come into this last week of the liturgical year. And that is, what can we do to empty ourselves, to trust in the power of the Lord's coming for ourselves, in our lives, and for our world?